Humanity repays a debt, and the galaxy shudders. My name is Tarek Vasile, and I am the first permanent human ambassador to the Galactic Concord. If you had told me 3 months ago that this title would mean anything to anyone beyond a handful of diplomats, I would have laughed. Humanity was new to the galactic stage. We were the young ones, the children sitting at a table full of ancient civilizations who had been sailing between stars long before we had learned to make fire. They tolerated us. Some of them even found us amusing. Nobody is laughing anymore. It started with a signal. I was sitting in my office aboard our diplomatic station, orbiting Relay Point Senna, drinking coffee that tasted like it had been brewed from sadness and recycled air. The console lit up with a priority alert, and when I read the source, my heart dropped straight into my stomach. The vaelith continuum was calling for help. If you do not know the vaelith, let me tell you about them. They are an ancient species of bioluminescent insectoids. Their bodies glow with soft light that shifts color depending on their emotions. They are gentle. They are peaceful. In 10,000 years of recorded galactic history, the vaelith have never fired a weapon at another living being. They are scholars, healers, gardeners of worlds. They tend to ecosystems the way a loving parent tends to a child, and someone was destroying them. The Drache Dominion had moved into their home cluster, the Shimmering Veil. The Drache are what happens when a predator species reaches the stars but never outgrows its hunger. They strip entire worlds down to bare rock, harvesting every resource, every mineral, every drop of water, and then they move on to the next one. They had turned their attention to the vaelith, and the vaelith had no army, no fleet, and no way to stop them. I rushed to the Concord Council session, expecting outrage, expecting action. What I found instead was silence. One by one, the representatives of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations stood and abstained. The Rithkai cited non-involvement protocols. The Melori expressed deep concern and offered nothing. The Torvan calculated the economic risks and decided the math did not work in the vaelith's favor. 12 species, 12 abstentions. The vaelith representative stood in the center of the chamber, her light flickering with a dim and fading blue that I did not need a translator to understand. She was afraid, and she was alone. I sat in that chamber and watched the galaxy abandon the kindest species it had ever produced. And that is when I remembered. 200 years ago, humanity was dying. A rogue gamma-ray burst had torn through our corner of the galaxy and shredded Earth's magnetosphere. The radiation poisoned our skies. Crops failed in the fields. The oceans turned acidic. We had no faster-than-light travel. We had no allies among the stars. We did not even know the stars had anyone in them. We were a small, frightened species, choking on our own dying world. And no one in the universe owed us a thing. But the vaelith came anyway. They broke the Concord's most sacred law to do it. The non-interference directive said you could not help a pre-contact species. You could not reveal yourself to a civilization that had not yet reached the stars. You were supposed to let them live or die on their own. The vaelith looked at that law, looked at 8 billion people suffocating on a poisoned planet, and decided that the law was wrong. They arrived quietly. They delivered atmospheric purifiers that cleaned our skies. They brought seed vaults filled with adapted crops that could grow in damaged soil. They gave us shielding technology that let us protect what was left of our magnetosphere. They asked for nothing in return. Not a treaty. Not a trade agreement. Not even a thank you. They simply gave us the tools to survive. And then they left. The Concord punished them for it. They stripped the vaelith of their voting privileges for 300 years. 3 centuries of silence, as the price for saving a world. The vaelith accepted the punishment without complaint, without protest, without bitterness. They never even mentioned what they had done. If you asked them about it, they would change the subject. It was as if saving an entire species was such a natural thing to do that it did not deserve discussion. My grandmother told me this story every single night when I was a child. She would sit on the edge of my bed, her voice quiet and steady, and she would say the same thing every time she finished. We owe a debt older than the stars we walk among, Tarek, and humans always pay what they owe. I left the council chamber and went straight to the communications array. I opened a channel to Earth's United Stellar Command and requested an emergency audience with Fleet Admiral Yoon. I expected to wait hours. I expected committees. I expected debates and votes and endless bureaucratic delay. Admiral Yoon responded in 11 minutes. Her face appeared on my screen, calm and composed, and she said 5 words that changed everything. "We know. The fleet is already moving." I stared at her. I asked her what she meant. She told me about something called Directive Vaelith. It was a classified standing military order. It had been created by the very first human government that achieved faster-than-light travel, and it had been renewed by every single administration for 200 years without exception. The directive was simple. If the vaelith continuum ever needed help, for any reason, under any circumstances, humanity would answer. Not with a task force, not with a token gesture, with everything. No vote required, no debate, no committee. It was written into our civilization's conscience, like a scar that would never fade. I sent a formal notification to the Concord Council. I want to be clear about my choice of words here. I did not request permission. I did not ask for approval. I informed them. Humanity was intervening in the shimmering veil, and we were doing it now. The alien ambassadors reacted the way I expected. Some of them smiled with amusement. Some of them looked confused. A few of them seemed concerned but not alarmed. After all, what could humanity really do? We had only been a spacefaring species for 2 centuries. We were regional at best. We were clever, sure. Resourceful, certainly. But this was not our business, and we were not powerful enough to make it our business. Then the sensor networks began to update. I was standing in the Concord's Grand Observation Hall when the data feeds changed. I watched the displays light up one by one, and I watched the expressions on every alien face in that room shift from amusement to confusion to something much deeper and much older than either. Humanity had not sent a task force. We had sent the fleet, all of it. 4,000 warships, 12 mobile shipyards, 6 colony carrier hospital ships loaded with medical teams, engineers, and enough supplies to rebuild a civilization, and leading the formation, 3 Leviathan-class dreadnoughts that no one in the galaxy had ever seen, fired in anger. We had emptied our borders. Every defense station, every patrol route, every guard fleet. Humanity had left its own worlds completely unprotected and pointed everything it had at the shimmering veil. The observation hall went silent. An elder ambassador of the Rithkai, a species known for its caution and its long memory, moved close to me and spoke in a low voice. "You have left yourselves defenseless. What if someone attacks your worlds while your fleet is away?" I looked at him, and I answered quietly, but the room was so silent that everyone heard it. "Then whoever does that will learn what happens when our fleet comes home angry." Nobody laughed. Nobody moved. I think some of them forgot to breathe. The Drach Dominion had 600 warships occupying vaelith space. By their standards, this was an overwhelming force. By ours, it was a problem we had already solved before we arrived. When our fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the shimmering veil, Admiral Yoon broadcast a single message on all channels. She told the Drake that they had 1 hour to withdraw from vaelith space. She told them this was not a negotiation. The Drake did not withdraw. They opened fire. I was not there for the battle. I learned what happened from intercepted transmissions and from the after-action reports that came flooding in over the following days. What I can tell you is this. Humanity fights in a way that no other species in the galaxy has ever encountered. We do not form neat lines. We do not follow predictable patterns. Every captain in our fleet has the authority to make decisions without waiting for orders. They adapt. They improvise. They take risks that any rational military mind would consider unacceptable. And they do it not because they are reckless, but because they understand something that most species never learn. War is not a calculation. It is a choice. And once you have chosen, hesitation is the only real enemy. Human ships threw themselves between Drach weapons and vaelith civilian stations. Crews redirected power from their own life support systems to boost shields on refugee transports. Engineers jury-rigged solutions in the middle of battle that should not have worked, but did, because human stubbornness does not respect the laws of probability. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it was over, the Drach fleet was not merely defeated, it was shattered. Humanity lost over 200 ships and 40,000 lives. 40,000 men and women who would never go home, who would never see their families again, who gave everything they had for a species that most of them had never met. When the Drach flagship finally signaled surrender, Admiral Yoon's response was broadcast on open channels, so that every listening post in the galaxy could hear it. She said, "You are not surrendering to us. You are surrendering to the vaelith. Their mercy is legendary. Ours is not. Pray they accept." The vaelith accepted. Of course they did. They always do. But we did not leave. That is the part that I think shook the galaxy more than the battle itself. After the fighting was over, after the Drach were gone, humanity stayed. We deployed the hospital ships. Our engineers began rebuilding vaelith infrastructure. Human agricultural teams moved across damaged worlds, replanting and restoring ecosystems, using techniques that the vaelith themselves had taught us 200 years ago. We had taken their gift, studied it, improved it, adapted it, and now we were returning it with 2 centuries of interest. I traveled to the Shimmering Vale 3 weeks after the battle. I visited a refugee camp on one of the outer worlds. The vaelith there were exhausted, their lights dim and flickering. I found an elder sitting alone in a temporary shelter, her glow so faint that I almost did not see her. I knelt beside her, and through a translator I told her that the debt was repaid. She reached out with trembling forelimbs and touched my face. Her light pulsed once, a warm gold that I had never seen before in any vaelith, and she said, "There was no debt, it was a gift." I could barely speak, my throat was tight, and my eyes were burning, but I managed to answer her. "We know. That is why we came." When I returned to the Concord, everything had changed. The alien ambassadors no longer looked at the human delegation with polite tolerance. They no longer smiled at us the way you smile at a child who has wandered into an adult conversation. They looked at us the way you look at something you have suddenly realized you never truly understood. I watched the shift happen in real time. Species began quietly reviewing their histories with humanity. Old grievances were reconsidered. Trade agreements were renegotiated with terms that were actually fair. Military alliances were offered without conditions. I learned through back channels that 2 species which had been planning operations against human border colonies quietly canceled them. Humanity had not demanded any of this. We had not threatened anyone. We had not made speeches about our strength or our resolve. We had simply shown the galaxy who we were. And who we were turned out to be something that made ancient civilizations nervous. Not because we were dangerous. Every species in the galaxy has weapons. Every species can fight. What made them nervous was something else entirely. It was the fact that we remembered. 200 years after a quiet species broke a law to save our world, we remembered. We kept that memory alive through generation after generation. We built a military directive around it, and when the moment came, we emptied our own defenses and bled for it without hesitation. The message was never spoken aloud, but every ambassador in the Concord understood it perfectly. Humanity remembers who helped them, and humanity remembers who did not. I am sitting in the observation deck now, writing this in my personal log. The stars outside the window look the same as they always do, but nothing else is the same. I am thinking about my grandmother. I am thinking about 40,000 people who will never come home. I am thinking about an old vaelith elder, whose light turned gold when she touched my face. They will write about this in the history books. They will call it a military victory. They will analyze our tactics and count our ships, and measure our firepower, and miss the point entirely. We did not come to the Shimmering Vale because we were strong. We came because someone was kind to us once, and we refused to forget. If that makes the galaxy shudder, then good. Let them shudder. Let them wonder what humanity would do for a friend. And let them wonder what we would do to anyone who harms one. This is Ambassador Tarek Vasile, closing his log. The debt is paid. The memory remains. End of transmission.